All right, it's 10:45, so let's get right into it. Welcome to the Traction Complete Coffee Break webinar. In this 15-minute presentation, I'm going to teach you a little bit about some of Salesforce's native functionality, which is duplicate rules. So just to quickly introduce myself, I'm Brian Likas, part of the customer success team here at Traction On Demand, and I work with a couple of our Salesforce products, Traction Complete and Traction Hierarchies. And so a little bit of background on Traction On Demand. So the majority of our business provides professional service for the Salesforce platform. We have about 350 employees working across North America. We've been around for about 10 years with almost 4,000 Salesforce projects under our belts. We're the largest dedicated Salesforce consulting partner in North America, and we have a huge focus on data. We have hundreds of data cleanup projects every year. So when we heard Salesforce release duplicate rules, we were super excited about them. We were actually really surprised that more people aren't taking advantage of them. So we've integrated some of this functionality into one of our products, Traction Complete, but we feel this is valuable for anybody, even if they're not using Traction Complete. And so Traction Complete is an account-based lead management platform for Salesforce, helping you enrich your leads with data and matching them to internal accounts and contacts, then reassigning them to the best rep and helping you convert leads more effectively. Complete leverages the duplicate rule functionality in Salesforce for matching, so setting these rules up well are important to anybody using Complete, but even if you're not a customer of ours, these rules can still be really useful in keeping your org clean. And so just for a quick overview, we're going to look at some of the basics of duplicate rules, how they're set up, what they do when you turn them on, and then I'll get into some specifics around using duplicate rules on leads and accounts, and how to work around some of the limitations of duplicate rules for some specific use cases. But before we get into that, just a really quick overview of the cost of bad data. So according to a research study by Serious Decisions, the implications of allowing duplicate records to be created can actually magnify your costs up to 100-fold if you don't do anything about them. So specifically with accounts, we feel that duplicates can be a huge issue with reps when they start to create duplicate accounts and opportunities within them. This can lead to problems within your organization like sales conflicts, commission splits, really difficult to report across multiple duplicate accounts, and just general wasting of everyone's time trying to search through your Salesforce org. And so duplicate rules, they're all based on matching rules. And so matching rules are kind of like an equation where you define the criteria for matching using fields from objects in Salesforce. And this can be native and custom objects. So you can choose a field or a set of fields to use in your match. So for accounts, it could be like an account name, state, or country, and then decide if you want your match to be exact or fuzzy. Salesforce comes with a bunch of different fuzzy matching algorithms, depending on the field. They use different ones, but for example, on an account name, you could match something like Salesforce to Salesforce.com or even IBM to International Business Machine. You can throw logic in matching rules if you want to make them more complex, or you can have multiple sets of criteria instead of creating multiple rules. So once you set up your matching rule, Salesforce gives you records a match key, which is basically a string made up of pieces of that match criteria, and then that's used to evaluate any new records when needed. Salesforce includes several standard lead fields, or sorry, not lead fields, rules out of the box, like the standard account matching rule, which has several sets of criteria, and you can simply activate these rules and use them right away. But when you're creating a matching rule, there are some limits. So the biggest one is that you can't create a matching rule which could have more than 100 results in the org. And so you need to make your match rule selective enough to be under this limit. And generally, you would do this by adding more criteria. So this is going to affect how you can use duplicate rules with leads, but we'll get into a workaround for that later in this webinar. So here's an example of a match rule. This is saying, if a new record has a similar account name, city, optionally street and zip, and the exact same country and state code, then that would be considered a match. And then duplicate rules are going to take those matching rules and tell Salesforce when to use them and what to do when a match is found. You can set duplicate rules to do things like block users from creating new records or just give them a warning message and which object you're going to be comparing to. So if you're going across objects, you actually need to map fields to each other, things like account name and company on leads, for example. But this is really useful on accounts. So here's an example of what could happen. Set up a dupe rule, and somebody actually tries to create a duplicate account. It's actually going to tell them that there is a duplicate and force them to use that duplicate rather than creating that new record. Now, on the lead object, it's a bit of a different story. So duplicate leads aren't really a bad thing. In fact, we consider duplicate leads to be good. They're meant to be an expression of interest at a point in time, and they should all be followed up on. Now, if you tried to set up a duplicate rule to block leads, this will actually have a negative impact on any web-to-lead forms that you have set up. So no leads will actually come through if you set it to block. If you have it set to alert, that's not going to be seen by anybody. So it's not really that useful. Also, with web-to-lead forms, you don't want to have to ask for a ton of information. So if you're asking too much information, people are less likely to fill it out, but you need selective data to be able to find a match with matching rules using kind of minimal web-to-lead forms. So the idea here is to use the email domain potentially as one of those matching rules. And so it's actually really easy to create a domain field based on the lead. Simply trim everything after the @ symbol, but with duplicate rules in mind, there are some complications. So free email domains like Gmail aren't going to be that useful in matching because you likely have more than 100 potential duplicates using that domain. So that means you wouldn't be able to activate a matching rule based on the domain name. And even if you could find a match, you wouldn't necessarily want to tie all of your Gmail or other free mail domain leads together. You could build logic into your formula, and we have an example of that to exclude Gmail, but formula fields have character limits, and there's potentially thousands of junk domains out there. So with a formula field, you'd only be able to get the biggest ones, but you'd probably have to exclude a lot of them. And formula fields aren't available in matching rules, so you need to create a workflow rule and other fields to copy the values into a text field. But in Traction Complete, we've actually handled these by giving you a custom field populated with a trigger and giving you the ability to load in as many domain exclusions as you want using a custom setting. We have a list of about 4,000 that we can load into your org and share with you. Similarly, on the account, you'd have to create a field to map in your matching rule. And the website field would be normalized to do this. It's in a little bit of a different way. You have to account for things like different protocols, prefixes, file paths, and characters. There's a lot of resources out here on the Salesforce developer community to show you how to do this. And we've included this as well in Complete, so you don't have to go ahead and create those fields. So using a fuzzy match rule on domain and maybe account name as well as an alternate can help you match as many leads to accounts as possible when you're collecting limited information from your prospects. And so if you don't have Complete, you can run reports and act on them that way. In Lightning, you could potentially add a potential duplicates component to your page layout and see the potential relationships. But if you have Complete, I'll just switch over into browser here. What we're doing with the matching rules on the Complete side, we're actually going through and populating a lookup relationship to the account here using that domain name and that fuzzy matching rule. So using that lookup to the account, we're able to pull in related records, so things like leads, contacts, opportunities, all in the page layout here. Additionally, we're able to stamp data down from the match record onto the lead as well, and giving you the ability to assign the lead more appropriately using all of that data. It goes a bit beyond beyond what you could do by just identifying or blocking the leads with the native duplicate rules functionality. Yeah, so that covers our quick tour of duplicate rules in Salesforce. Hope you guys enjoyed. We do have resources available to share with everybody after the webinar, so please reach out if you'd like to have that list of excluded domains, or if you'd like to have the formulas used to create your own formula fields outside of what you would get incomplete. Definitely reach out. We'll share the webinar recording with everybody as well, and we hope to see you again next week for another coffee break. Thanks a lot, everybody.